Hello and welcome to Nikon Report, your weekly roundup of all the latest Nikon news and all other photographic announcements that we found interesting. It's Konstantin here.
And this is Becky.
And we are bringing you the latest news. And the latest news is this little camera called Z8.
Yes, what the internet is calling the Z8. The purported Z8 has had its first leaked picture on Nikon rumours. Goodness knows where these people get their information from, but it's up there for all the world to see.
Yeah, so what we're going to do right now, we're going to bring you the timeline of all the events prior to the 2nd of May. So, first of all, the leaked pictures came out. The camera looks like it's changed a little bit. So if you're looking at the base, which is the most different one. So now we have smooth corners.
Yeah, because that's right, because the initial one looked very boxy, didn't it?
Yeah, because all I did is I just chopped the grip off of Z9. You know, that was my mock-up.
That's right.
Now, someone actually spent time in Photoshop trying to smooth the area, you know.
I mean, it looks like a cross between a D850 and doesn't it? With the smooth corners, looks a bit D850-ish.
Yeah, what's interesting to me, actually, first of all, it says Z on the camera and not Z8, which is interesting to start with. Now, if you look at the Z9 mock-up, there's a little wheel for a single continuous frame rate and a time and mirror lockup.
Oh, yeah.
So mirror lockup on the mirrorless cameras. Yeah.
Mirror lockup in the old school days.
So obviously people are already writing pages of text saying there's no mirror in the mirrorless cameras. We know that. So that little wheel looks like it's missing. The prism looks slightly different compared to Z9, just slightly. It looks like it's a tiny bit smaller.
Right.
But we still maintain the function 1, function 2 buttons. We don't have function 3 button, which was on Z9.
Okay. And this, it's really funny because it kind of looks like the Z9 and the D850 had a baby. That's what it looks like to me. That's what those pictures look like.
Well, I think finally we're starting to have pictures where we were saying for a long time, saying that the camera will be bigger than the Z7.
Right.
And I think that's something we were really spot on. And the logic there was very clear. You want to have a bigger body for professional use.
Right.
Now, Z7, Z6 cameras are about 650 grams or so. So that one, I assume, would be a little bit heavier just based on that, isn't it?
Yeah, one would think so looking at it. Well, I guess time will tell if that's really what we are seeing.
Absolutely. And then obviously also the specifications leaked for the camera. And it looks like it is indeed a mini Z9. Again, we don't know. We speculate at this stage, but obviously we'll find out next week. So it looks like it's literally a mini Z9. Nothing changed there. We got the same sensor, the same ISO range. I assume we're going to have, as on Z9, the low 1, low 2, which is, we'll push it to 32. ISO 20 frames per second and 120 in JPEG mode, which is basically the same. Stabilization is the same. Shutter speeds are the same. Focus points are the same. Now, the video looks like it's the same. And we will talk about it later, but there's another big discussion that will be later in this podcast is about Red versus Nikon and why we have the same video specifications now and why it happened literally right after the lawsuit was dismissed. So we're going to talk about this later, so stay tuned on that. But it looks like everything is the same. Viewfinder is the same. The screen at the back is the same. It's going to take CF Express and SD cards according to the specification, so not to CF Express.
Right.
So what do you think about that?
I think that's a wise choice considering the supposed size of the camera. And I think that might be more useful for a lot of people, particularly if they're moving from, say, a Z6 or a Z7 to on upwards and they don't have to worry about buying different cards. So that's good. Obviously, also the same in the D850, which is great. And if it's going to be a D850 replacement, sort of, then that kind of makes sense.
It makes sense.
Now, it says weight under 1 kilo. So obviously Nikon rumours haven't figured out that bit yet. But that's
a chunky camera. I mean, it's basically probably will be close to D850 weight.
Yeah. So that is going to be quite heavy. Yeah. The rest of the specifications essentially look the same as the Z9. I don't see anything different there. So if those leaked specs are true, then we won't be seeing a wildly different camera, will we?
Okay, so that happened on 24th of April.
Right.
Now, on 25th of April, Nikon Rumours published another leaked image of the back of the camera and compared it to Z9. And if you look at it, it looks pretty similar to me. I mean, I don't know, is the viewfinder a bit smaller compared to Z9? Eyepiece looks the same.
Yeah, it looks basically the same. Gosh, somebody's screenshot that off the back of a screenshot off the back of a screenshot. Like,
well, you have to make it look clicked. Like, you see, it's not just, you don't show the image in it. You then print it, then you scan it, then you print it, then you scan it, then you print it, then you scan it. And then you also save it as a 20% compression JPEG.
I love how one of the comments says, video switch is still too close to AF on. It's like exactly the same as the Z9. So
and it's still too close, which means this comment is correct. So that was that. And then basically another article came out saying that the Z8 camera body or its parts are rumored to be made out of high stiffness carbon fiber, reinforced thermoplastics or similar material. So Z9 is made of aluminium. But Nikon used the fiber reinforced thermoplastics. In the past, we had them in D780, D5600, 54-500, and 3400, and I believe 5300 as well. People may correct me on that.
okay.
It looks to me, yes, if it's one of those things that will help the camera to be a little bit more robust than, let's say, Z6 or Z7, that would be better. Because if Z8 is aimed for professional use, then we do want a slightly reinforced body. So that was that. And then Asobin had published a size comparison of Z8 and other Nikon Z cameras. Now, again, nothing is confirmed yet, but all those articles are out, and you can have a look at those comparisons below. So obviously, we have a comparison with Z9, Z7 cameras, and also D850. It looks pretty much D850 size in this case.
Now we move on to the 26th of April, which a lot of you will know. Nikon USA released a teaser on that day, and the teaser essentially just said, "Are you ready?" and had a countdown for the 10th of May, or 5/10 as they call it in the USA, which is back to front. But anyway.
Yeah, so it's 5th of October, there's official announcement. I mean, it's what? It's a 2nd of May now. Well, it's a couple months plus, I guess, to wait. But it's fine. I'm there. I'm in the chat right now. So I'll see you in October.
Anyway, let's not confuse our US and UK viewers. It is the 10th of May that date is supposed to be. It did flummox a few people because obviously Europeans, we have our dates. Goes day, month, and year, and the US have it the other way around. But anyway, then our very own Rishi from Nikon,
who doesn't know anything about the upcoming release, clearly
posted a video about the Nikon countdown, made some speculations there which were interesting. And rather than us also doing a video on the subject that there was a teaser, we did a video about his video about the teaser. So
that's a proper 4D chess, I would say.
That's the inception of teaser videos, I would say. But yes, 4D chess as well.
But the interesting thing that Rishi pointed out in that video, if you actually zoom in to one of the question marks after "Are you ready?", you would see the silhouette of 8 in there. And that tells us there could be 8 cameras or lenses announced on that day. I'm very, very excited. I can't even think about the 8 cameras they can release.
I'd be so happy if they did that.
Look, yeah.
8 accessories to go with 8 cameras. Like 7 brides for 7 brothers.
So the body cap, the battery tool, battery grip potentially, because we would expect on D850. Name me other 5 accessories. A new remote release, perhaps.
Yeah, we are in dire need of a new wireless remote, to be honest.
MC30Z, But something that Tom Hogan pointed out, he says, everyone expected Nikon Z8 to be released. What I am looking for, aka Tom Hogan, I'm looking what else will come with it. And really speaking, battery pack is kind of expected because D850 had one. It would make sense. Tom Hogan talks about flash system. He said there were some new flash guns prototyped by Nikon and tested according to him.
He's in the know.
He does know a few things.
He knows stuff. Yeah.
I mean, at least, that's what we think. I mean, he makes a good impression.
He makes it sound like he has privy information he is privy to these things.
But Nikon in the past announced with cameras like D6, they announced with WR1 and, the whole remote releases and all that. So that would be quite interesting. And obviously, if the camera has a 10-pin socket, which all professional Nikon cameras have, including Z9, then maybe some accessories will come with it. What do you think? Are we going to see potentially something announced with that release?
I'd love it if they did something. I remember back when the D750 came out and they announced the SB500 at the same time. D5, D500, I think it was the SB5000. So it's possible that there could be some speed lights. We saw Z9 and shortly after came the MCN10. It wasn't announced with it. The Z6 II, Z7 II announcements, those came along with a grip, which then we didn't hear anything about for quite a long time, but there was a grip announcement. So yeah, I think that we might see something.
That's true.
might be exciting. I'd love it if there was a 200 to 600 and maybe a couple of other lenses released at the same time. Surprise!
Well, that would be cool because, yeah, if it's Mini Z9, it makes sense maybe to release some sport wildlife-related items, or aka long lenses, because we didn't really see any long lens releases in the last 2 years or so. Now, on top of the teaser that everyone saw on the internet, Nikon USA sent out some emails, some newsletters to people, say, save the date. What we also know, there's a Nikon photo is happening next week in Somerset House in London. So potentially, we may see something there. Who knows? I mean, I would love to see Nikon to have whatever is released on display. And since we know that Nikon is, for the last 3 years, they've been to Photo London.
Yeah.
So that would be quite interesting. So you never know. Maybe you'll see something at Photo London.
Well, Photo London is the world's largest fine art photography fair. It is well worth just going and having a look around at the exhibits. We've actually done a live stream the last few years, haven't we, from Photo London, which has always been fun. I don't know if we'll get a chance to do that again this year, but it would be really great if we could. It is coming very soon. But the fact that the dates line up is quite nice, so maybe we will see something. It would be exciting. We will have all of our friends from Nikon Europe and from Nikon School there doing their workshops as per usual. So if you are planning to go, you can sign up for that on the Nikon School website, which is well worth doing.
Yeah, Rishi is normally there as well. Who knows, maybe he will be this year as well. Now, the following day, Nikon Rumours published 2 articles on potential shipping date and the price of the camera. The first one came from China and was proved to be fake, but some Chinese dealer published a price of $3,599. And then later on, people say it was fake, it was just a placeholder. But then a couple of days later, on 30th of April, there was a slide taken from European presentations to the dealer, according to Nikon Rumours again. And the price there was 4,599 euros for the body. And there was also a kit mentioned with 24 to 120 lens priced at 5,549.
Wow.
So that's very interesting. The release date as well is 25th of May, so end of the month, which is going to be really cool. If you're on 10th of the month, we're going to see the camera, and then on 25th is going to be released. So that's going to make it really nice, because we had Z9 an official announcement at the end of October, and then we got at the end of December, which means 2 months. So it seems like Nikon is trying to shorten the time from the announcement point to the delivery. We also heard the rumors that there's going to be a much bigger stock available, still going to be sold out, but hopefully more people will get their hands on it. So 4,600 euros in British pounds is about 4,047 pounds. That's for today's rate.
Very reasonable.
That's including roughly 20-21% tax. So that's what you folks in the United States don't have. So I assume, as a lot of people thinking, it's going to be something like 3,999 for the body, because it makes sense to make it kind of a one round figure.
Right.
Who knows? It could be more. It could be less.
4,099 or 4,199. Is any of those? To be honest, we don't necessarily get, the thing is that we don't in the UK necessarily get an even and exact exchange rate, even with euros to pounds, not just with US dollars to pounds.
I agree. But what I think that if Nikon is smart and aggressive, and looking at Z9 announcement, remember we were thinking 6,300, 6,299, 6,199 when we were predicting Z9 release.
Yeah.
And they went with 5.5.
Yeah, it was amazing.
And we thought that that price of 6.3 would be based on G6 price back in the day. So they went 5.5, and they also undercut Sony A1 at this stage.
Yeah.
So if they're going to follow the same pattern, then £4,000, including tax, makes sense. And in dollars, probably once you remove the tax, maybe it would be 3,599 or 3,699. Then it's very aggressive positioning, you know. So you have quite a difference, so £1,500 difference between Z9 and Z8 cameras.
Okay. My prediction is that it would be 4,299, because then it would be exactly £1,000 less than the Z9. And if it is going to be a mini Z9, I still think that £1,000 less could be quite an aggressive price. That's where I'm thinking it is. So if we look at the Z lineup as it is now, and we're talking full frame, we've got the Z5, which is about 1,300, let's call it. £1,300 we're talking here.
The British Royal Pounds.
British Royal,
BRP.
Great British pounds. So we've got Z5 at 1,300. We've got Z6 II at 2,000.
Okay.
Call it. We've got Z7 II at 3,000.
Okay.
So Z8, 4,300. This is my prediction. Z9 at 5,300.
Yeah. But it's very interesting. I see what you mean. But we applying today's prices of those cameras because they were more expensive.
For sure. Yeah, they were like £500 more expensive. All of them were £500, except for the Z9, Z5, Z6 II, Z7 II were all about £500-ish more expensive at the point of release. But here's the thing. If then Nikon bring out a Z6 III and a Z7 III, how are they going to position those if the Z8 is too cheap?
So Z7 II came out 3.5. Yeah, so if they make Z8 4 and then Z7 Mark III comes out, you can't really make it 3.5. You have to make it cheaper, isn't it? No, I see what you mean. Yeah, it makes sense. I still want it to be 4K.
Sure.
Because that just slaps all the other brands.
It would be very, very competitive. It would be a super competitive move on the part of Nikon. Yeah. Now, Nikon Rumours have a kind of schedule of what they think is going to happen.
Because Z8 is not enough. So we need to tell you what's going to happen this year. Thank you, Nikon Rumours, for that. I mean, I enjoy this.
Yeah.
I do feel it's a little bit far-fetched, but let's just go through that and see what they think is going to happen this year after this rumored announcement on 10th of May.
Yeah, so after that, they think that we're going to get a second camera.
A second body.
In September. Which is great. I love the idea of having more than one camera release in a year. Let's go back to the good old days, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, one camera a year.
Yeah. One camera a year is like, we haven't only had one camera a year in a long, long time.
Yeah, because we had Z9 and Z30. That was 2021, 2022. Let's go back to good old times.
Let's go back to pre-2021 times. Anyway, but they think that it's going to be a full frame ZF. They said probably. What? Okay, sure. Why not, Nikon Rumours? Why not?
Okay, ZF, okay.
So I think that's a bold statement on the part of Nikon Rumours.
And no Z6 III and Z7 Mark III in September?
No.
Okay.
So they think that that's not going to happen anytime soon. Okay, fine. Then they're thinking 180 to 600. I don't know why it's 180 to 600. What happened to the 200 to 600?
Inflation. No, deflation.
Deflation. So they think that there's going to be in the summer a 180 to 600. They've reported that the lens will most likely be that with a variable aperture rather than a 200 to 600 6.3, which was what was originally purported. I mean, to be honest, the 200 to 600 has never had an aperture written next to it on the roadmap. So we've never known whether it's going to be a 5.6 or 6.3 or whatever. So they think it's going to be a 180 to 600. I'd imagine a 4 to 5.6, a bit like the 100 to 400 is. And then last up, the 24DX, also in summer.
We can ignore all the lenses, but I don't agree with the assessment of ZF in September and no Z6 III, Z7 Mark III. I hope that either Z6 III or Z7, we don't need to release them together. I mean, historically they were released more or less together, but we probably will need to see one of those cameras, maybe Z6 Mark III, to be released soon. Not necessarily September, but this year. But what are your thoughts, Becky?
I would agree. I think a Z6 III would make more sense than a ZF for Nikon, particularly if the ZF is basically a stripped down and put into a retro body Z6 II, which is what it would
or could be Z5.
Or Z5. But then they'd have to make it the right price point, you see, because then it's no longer a luxury item. It's...
Well, yes and no. Let me tell you the story, Becky. So back in the day, there was a D600 or D610 camera, and there was a DF.
Yeah.
So DF, while had a D4 sensor, it's also body-wise and construction-wise was more closer to D600 in terms of build quality, weatherproofing, autofocus system.
Yes.
So all that was basically based on D610. So assuming that ZF follows that feature, potentially Z5 guts make more sense. But obviously, I would prefer having Z6 III sensor and functionality in there over a slower autofocus system of Z5.
Sure. Okay. I wouldn't be so happy about that, but I can see why you would look at that as being the whatever.
Yeah, or Nikon will slap a 45.7 megapixel sensor everywhere for the next 5 years, and that's what's going to be the end of it. You know, following like DX pattern.
Everything is going to be 45.7, and every DX camera is going to be the 20.5, whatever it is, megapixels.
Your comments are welcome. But yeah, very interesting, Becky. Very interesting. I personally think we're going to have plenty of time to discuss it, because the day the camera or whatever they actually announced, people will move on and say, oh, when Nikon is going to release this, or when Nikon is going to release that.
In that exact tone of voice.
Exactly. And we can continue to speculate. We can't just enjoy the release of something. We need to suddenly say, oh, Nikon is not doing this or that. You know?
Well, I think that we actually had quite a long honeymoon period with the Z9, probably because it was so difficult to get hold of the darn thing. I really, really hope from a manager of a camera shop viewpoint, I really, really hope that the prediction of good stock of whatever this release is accurate, because we know that there are a lot of people who are desperate to get their hands on whatever the new thing is. Whether there's someone who wants a mini Z9 because they didn't want to spend the extra on the Z9, or because it was too heavy, or because they were waiting because, you know, they weren't sure if they wanted to go that way. After this length of time has passed where the technology of the Z9 is tried and tested, and honestly, for most types of photography, it is the obvious choice, but people can't necessarily stretch to it. I think it would be very, very challenging for everyone in the Nikon community if we have a similar stock situation as to what we had with the Z9. So I'm really hoping that things will be better.
Well, I'm really hoping that the lessons with the supply have been learned, and we're starting to see the improvement on logistics since this thing called COVID-19 that we had over a few years.
When are we ever going to forget that it happened?
Exactly. And then what also tells me about the logistic improvement, that Nikon just got AAA rated by one of those things that rate companies.
Yeah.
And part of their assessments was the logistic situation and supply situation. So you don't get AAA for nothing.
No.
You know.
Don't get 5-star.
Unless you're Call of Duty. So it seems like the supply situation has improved. So finally we're going to start to see the cameras coming in. But obviously we'll expect Z8 to sell more just based on price compared to Z9. But fingers crossed.
It's exciting.
We speculate. We're going to find out next week. So stay tuned, and we're going to continue with the rest of the show.
Next up, many of you will have heard the news that the Nikon versus Red patent lawsuit has been dismissed. As we have covered in earlier podcasts, there was an ongoing situation where Red had basically tried to sue Nikon for the implementation of compressed RAW recording capabilities in the Z9 camera, and Nikon had denied all of their claims and fought back. Now, considering that Red had previously successfully sued other companies for the use of this.
Sony, Apple, you name it.
Exactly. It was going to be a tough battle, I would say. But on the 25th of April, the California Central District Court published the joint motion for dismissal, and the case was dismissed.
Yeah. So when they say dismissed, it's a one thing, you know? So it's like, oh, they just throw away the thing. But it's a joint motion for dismissal. So both companies agreed to dismiss the lawsuit. Let's just leave it at that for now. So what did they state? So legal speak to me, Becky.
Okay, so plaintiff Red.com LLC and defendants Nikon Corporation and Nikon Inc. hereby stipulate and move pursuant to this joint motion under Federal Rule of Civil Procedure 41A.1.2 that this action be dismissed without prejudice as to all claims, counterclaims, causes of action, defences and parties, with each party bearing their own attorney's fees and costs.
Can I call you Judge Judy or Judge Becky?
Order.
All right, so we're going to put some pictures for you so you can actually go on the website, which is called Y Cinema, and read all that. So if you want to get into all those patents and all the legal documents, it's all in there.
If that's your jam.
Exactly. Well, one of the things that's what's interesting is that happened on 25th of April. Nikon announced a teaser campaign for a release of something which has 8 in the description of that particular model, be it a lens or a camera.
Yes.
So that happened on 26.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting. I don't know. I don't know if it's connected, if it's coincidental, but if it's a Nikon Z8, I would assume that Z8 will have all the fancy raw T-Core RAW functionalities that Z9 has, and that settlement could potentially delay the announcement of Nikon Z8 because they were trying to get it settled before they announce a new camera. So that is my theory. Now, it is a joint dismissal, therefore there could be all sorts of theories. So one of the theories, obviously Nikon paid some royalties to Red, and then they dismissed it. But then from another point, it doesn't make sense because the whole point of this lawsuit, counter lawsuit from Nikon to Red, not to pay those royalties.
Yes.
So another wild theory is that if Nikon was correct and the lawsuit would go through and Nikon would win, that would make all the Red patents no longer valid.
Right.
because all other companies like Sony and Apple that settled with Red, they would potentially then just can't sue them again.
That's right.
So that would basically make a precedent. So that's thing number two. So, and obviously, I don't think Red would want that. The whole point of defense for Nikon was saying that the Red started to sell the cameras before filing the patents.
Right.
And that was the whole story behind it. But it is a very interesting decision. I thought at the beginning when it's dismissed as just Nikon won and, judges throw away the whole case. No, it's a joint thing.
Throw it out the window.
They talk to each other behind the closed doors, so which means we won't find out what's actually happened there. Maybe 10 years down the road, someone is going to tell us the story. But Petapixel had a very interesting interview with a chief legal officer and head of national content and education about this lawsuit.
Yeah.
And they had this to say.
They said, a Rule 41 dismissal can mean a lot of things, so it's pretty vague. Most relevant is that it was a joint dismissal, so both parties signed off. And it's one without prejudice, which means if something happens in the future, it can be brought back to court. Now, when asked if this had the potential to affect cases in the past and future, Thomas Madry, who is the chief legal officer, said, it's possible. He said for other companies who might look at this case, it would only make sense that if you have a blueprint to a settlement in front of you, which this could possibly be, you would follow up on it as long as the previous battles were not dismissed with or without prejudice. Once a settlement has been reached, no matter which side promotes the agreement, almost every one of them will include some line that says you can't sue for it again. So it's more likely to affect future litigation than past litigation, but companies will definitely take notice of it.
This is very interesting. We've included the articles by Petapixel, Y Cinema, and also video by Matt Irvin discussing the issue. So if you want to dive deep into the whole technical side of things of the lawsuit and the patents of Nikon versus Red, feel free to do so in the description below.
There you go. Now, for some promotional news, Nikon USA has some rebates for the month of May across the pond for you USA purchasers. This includes the D850, the 200 to 500, and a few other F-mount lenses, D780 as well.
That's nice. And they also continue to have discounts on about 63 Z lenses as well. So if you're in the United States, that's a good time to buy some Nikon goodies. Now, a quick stock update for our American viewers. So Nikon 85mm f1.2 lens, as of today, which is 2nd of May, is in stock in Adorama and B&H of the world. And then also, according to Nikon Rumours, the Z800mm f6.3 lens is shipping to people in the United States. So it seems like Adorama is still filling the orders for non-APS users, and B&H Photo is currently shipping orders placed 2 hours after the official announcement.
Wowza. Now, for UK promotions, we have enhanced part exchanges on the Z6 II, Z7 II, and Z5. That means that if you trade in any camera towards any of those bodies, then you get a bonus on top of what your camera would normally be worth. Honestly, it will cover anything. You can trade in anything, quite literally.
A calculator?
You could trade it. No, it has to be some kind of camera equipment.
Okay.
Unless it's a camera calculator. That ends on the 9th of May. Now, in terms of stock updates, 85 1.2s are still not available for the most part across the UK and much of Europe as well. 800 mils are available, as are 600s and 400s with a very short lead time. So if you have been waiting for one of those long lenses, definitely get in touch with Grays of Westminster. We will be able to sort you out for those. There are some other UK promotions on that are not Nikon related, but could be of interest. We have the Tamron 70 to 300 Z lens. That one has £130 off.
Okay, that makes it £569.
Yeah.
Versus $699. And in my books, this is very attractive.
Yeah, this is a really good price for this lens. We have reviewed it a couple of times, actually. We've done a comparison with the Nikon version, and we've done a standalone review on that one. It's a lens that we've both had plenty of experience with and are quite fond of. If you want to take advantage of that offer, you just have to use the code TAMRON23 at checkout, and then you'll get your £130 off. So if you've been waiting, then now is a really good time.
That's true. And Nikon doesn't have a native Z70-300 lens. So for some people who don't come from DSLR cameras to mirrorless, but they just buy a completely new system, that's the only kid on the block. And having it at £130 off, at £569, that's actually, yeah, it's a really good price for this lens.
It is.
All right, now on to some Nikon Corporation news. So Nikon establishes new company in the United States to transform the future in digital manufacturers as well as additive manufacturing.
Cool. So Nikon announced the formation of Nikon Advanced Manufacturing Incorporated and will begin its operation in July 2023. This is a new customer-centric digital manufacturing solution company, which will be based in California,
Kali?
USA, and serve as the global headquarters of Advanced Manufacturing Business Unit established in April 2023. So this will be the first time in its more than 100-year history that the global headquarters of a Nikon business unit will be outside Japan. Wow. Interesting. Now, there are lots of Nikon digital manufacturing investments that will consolidate under the Nikon Advanced Manufacturing Inc. And the new company will also be responsible for existing additive manufacturing business.
Yeah, so SLM and Morph 3D that Nikon acquired, quite recently we talked about it. That's to do with effectively 3D printing, but not your home hobbyist 3D printing from plastics.
No.
It's actually from metals.
Yeah.
So, and that's a big thing nowadays because you can go through prototyping process of designing things like cameras and lenses much faster because you don't need to create the mold, which can cost thousands or in some cases millions. You can go through those things really, really quick. So
amazing.
I think it makes sense because obviously Nikon is a traditional Japanese company. I think for something like this, which is new and developing and advancing all the time, it's worth maybe having a company in somewhere else in the United States. And it's, in this case, obviously, California is quite famous for Silicon Valley and all the tech startups.
It is.
So it seems like it's a good place to be there. And obviously you have Sun and San Francisco and Los Angeles nearby.
Down the road.
So it's pretty good. It's pretty good. So big step for Nikon. Good luck to them with that. I guess next time we're in LA.
We'll pop by and say hello.
Exactly. Maybe finally I'll 3D print an H512 lens. All right, let's move on to some third-party news. The TTArtisan finally announced a rumored autofocus 27mm f2.8 pancake lens for Nikon Z mount.
Yes, we have one here.
Yeah.
Here's one we made earlier.
Absolutely, 3D printed it. It's only $149, which is a great thing about it. We had it for a while, and we're going to publish a review on this lens later this week, so stay tuned for that.
Excellent. All right. Now for your reviews. We have been very busy bees. We've been around the London Barbican with the new Sigma lenses. The first two of those review videos are already out. We've got the 16mm f1.4 DCDNI Contemporary and the 56mm f1.4. Both of those are 4DX cameras, and the 30mm one will be out probably the beginning of next week. So stay tuned for that. But if you're interested in how those lenses perform and what the images look like as a result, then do go check out our little videos.
All three lenses are available at Grazo Smith, so you're welcome to purchase them after watching our reviews. I personally enjoy those lenses.
Yes.
I think they're reasonably priced. The performance is very, very reasonable for what you get. And they're small and light, which is nice to have for DX body with a metal mount, which is important to me.
There you go.
Let's move on to Weekend Read and Watch. MRC, which is Mark Roberts Control, published a video of their stand-up NAB show celebrating the 100th anniversary of National Association of Broadcasters. They talk about their robot arms, all those little fancy things that they had on the show. So if you still don't know what MRMC is doing, then definitely have a look at it. They're owned by Nikon and it's in Vision 2030. So, it's coming a few years from now.
Awesome.
To your household. I mean, would you want to have a robot arm helping you with toasting bread?
Yeah. I like a robot arm that does the dishes for me because I don't have a dishwasher.
And shooting time-lapse at the same time.
Why not? Next up, we have How Does Kodak Make Film? This is a Kodak Factory Tour Part 1 and 2 of 3 parts by Smarter Everyday YouTube channel. So go and check those 2 parts of the video out.
Yeah, so they visited Kodak Factory and they published those 2 parts in a space of 9 months. And no one knows when the Part 3 comes out. But those videos are about an hour long each. And it's a very interesting deep dive into manufacturing process of film. If you thought that the film is easy to manufacture, it is definitely not.
Think again.
Exactly. Now, back to some other film news. There's a rumor came out on Petapixel that Kodak Alaris, and it's a company that's actually responsible for distribution of Kodak film. So Kodak Rochester makes the film.
Yeah.
They're not allowed to sell it.
Right.
Kodak Alaris is allowed to distribute it. And Kodak Alaris has to place an order
with Kodak
to manufacture a certain amount of film.
Wow.
To be then distributed to the dealers.
Wow, that must have been such a legal nightmare for them.
Exactly. Now, the rumor came out that Kodak Alaris is now for sale. And the question is, who is going to buy it? Here comes a Nikon photography show. Nico, he's a quite well-known chap in the film groups, and he does those Nikon news shows similar to Nikon Report, but for anything analog. Now, with the YouTube introducing podcasts, he launched his own podcast, and we may try to dip into that as well. So we're going to find out. But there's an hour-long discussion of what Kodak does, why they went bankrupt, and potentially is for sale. So if you are into film photography, then definitely it's a really nice watch and listen. We'd recommend you that very much.
Okay, interesting.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for joining us this week.
Yes, thank you very much for watching and or listening. Please give us a like and a subscribe if you're on YouTube. If you're listening on a podcast platform, then give us a follow, a rating, a review would be nice also.
We are available on all good podcast platforms, including Apple Podcast, Amazon, and Spotify. I guess we're going to add ourselves to YouTube Music as well, to be part of that as well. So if you don't like to watch but listen, definitely do download those and leave us a review on those platforms.
We would love it. And if you'd like to find us on the interwebs, we are on Instagram at the moment. I'm at Rebecca_Genesi. The shop is at Nikon at Grays.
And I'm at Konstantin Kochkin. We are publishing samples of the images that you see in our video reviews, so it may be worth checking out. Now, the next week is the 10th of May.
Yeah.
We are gearing up to produce a lot of content, whatever that is, a video of a video, a reaction of reaction. Stay tuned, and hopefully we'll see you next week to discuss whatever that beautiful announcement from Nikon is. Don't know if it's beautiful or not, but it's got 8 in it, and I am very excited, Becky.
Excellent.
We will see you next week.
We
Bye-bye.
will. Bye.